Hey gang, this is Chris Harden. I am going to share with you a delightful little experience I had last night in using Hermes 2.5, which is a large language model, a fine-tuned model, that apparently is very popular for making non-playable characters with large language models. So imagine if you're talking to a character that you like on a computer game. This one has a really good developer experience. It works pretty well for making characters that talk back to you without having a script in front of them. So last night I spent a few hours getting everything set up. I'm going to share that journey with you today. Where I'm going to get to is I'll show you here on something called LM Studio. It actually shows a conversation that I'm having with a character that I created. And I was really pleased with the results of the development experience, but also actually how it talks back to me. It's really great. There's a few challenges, but if you're interested in how large language models can be used to create, say, a non-playable character in your game who talks to you, this is a lightweight look at how that works. So here's the thing. I was inspired by this character called Orb from Unity. So they have this package called Centis that you can put in your game, and it will connect to a large language model or other types of AI in a certain format. In this case, Orb is run by some sort of large language model. I'm assuming it's Llama 2. I don't know that, but at the time, Llama 2 was very big. It's an open source model, and you can ask it questions, and it actually talks to you and responds. So you can look up Unity Muse and Orb, and you can see this guy. He's awesome. I'm not going to run the video here, but really delightful experience. So I'm not at a point where I'm going to show a full video of my character talking. I just wanted to see if I could get a decent large language model responding to me with the character's persona. And so anyhow, this is the inspiration. Now what I'd like to do one day is potentially take Trobo, a character that Jeremy Scheinberg and I made years ago, and bring him to life either in a Unity game, for kids to interact with, or run a large language model maybe in his tummy, and he speaks to you and tells stories right from the belly of the robot or from the mouth of the robot with a little embedded system. But this is a long way to get there, and so for now I just wanted to see if I could get a large language model that is able to have a certain personality. Now, I'm a bit lazy right now. I don't have all the stories handy for Trobo, but I do have the stories handy for Stanley and the Candy Cane Wormhole. For those of you guys who know that book that I've published last year, it's about a squirrel who delivers gifts for Santa through wormholes. Anyway, I have all the raw text. So all this paragraphs you see here, like one Christmas Eve, a sad little snow squirrel. This stuff is all in a raw chunk of text that I copied and pasted into right here. No work on it, no cleaning. Some of the spaces and stuff are out, and so you have words that are combined like help Santa. But this is actually going to be what I feed into my large language model as the part of the training or the context window, and then I'll start talking to it and asking questions. So what I'm trying to do is seeing if I can get a large language model to talk like Stanley for me, which I just clicked out of that, but in the preview here you saw Stanley. So that's the goal, and I'll show you how far I got. So first thing was I just Googled, in case you're interested in doing this yourself, I Googled what is a good large language model for making characters that respond. I had initially, and Reddit had a great selection of answers, and a lot of these people recommended Open Hermes. So that's what I mentioned earlier. That's the one we're going to use. Now I had tried doing it directly with Mistral 7B, which is a small footprint model, and I'll show you first the struggle that I had there with that one. So Mistral can be run locally if you want to by something called Ollama. So you install Ollama, and it'll run a bunch of different models for you. This is a Windows computer, but you can do it on other platforms. And I just ran it, and then I copied and pasted in the book content that I showed you earlier. I says, you're the squirrel in the following story. One Christmas Eve, a sad little snow squirrel, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just telling it what it is, and then once I paste all of that in, I start asking questions. Anyhow, I don't know that I necessarily have treated Mistral quite right. I just dumped the data in there. I think there's a format that I could use to help it, a little template format. But even with that copy and paste, it really struggled. The last time I did it, before shooting this video, it just kept on rambling and rambling and rambling. It really struggled to answer simple questions like, who are you? So in this case, it failed. It didn't give me a decent answer. But with LM Studio and with a different model, I got a really delightful set of results. So LM Studio, for what it is, you can download it and install it. It's free for personal use. And you can see it has the major platforms here. So I did that. The next step was also to install the model of choice. So OpenHermes is, again, what it is, just to be clear, it is Mistral 7B, 7 billion parameters, but it's also been fine-tuned with other data sets. Now, I haven't looked into the other data sets, but the idea is that this team has gone in and they fine-tuned it, and it's become a pretty good reference for generating these models that you can use to interact with. So grab this model, and they have different flavors of the model. For what it's worth, you have to go and download one that can be run on your local computer. So these guys here, the bloke, have different versions that they've compressed with something called quantization, but basically making it small enough to run on your GPU a little bit. And I think I grabbed this one here, or the one just above it. Yeah, I think I may have grabbed this third one. So all that to be said, if you look at the install, this is actually LM Studio right here. And in the middle, you'll see the conversation that I have with Stanley. But before I show you that, here's how it worked. I downloaded the OpenHermes 2.5 Mistral, and I said earlier I grabbed one of those special versions of the OpenHermes build, and it's the Q6. So I think it's 6-bit quantization. And that's the model I'm using. And you can do other models. I'm not going to change it out of the screen. I just wanted you to show that's the model I picked. And then over here on the side, the system prompt, that's where I copied and pasted all of the data that I showed you earlier. So here it says, you are the squirrel in the following story. I copied all that stuff in there, just blank as it was. Again, it's not great. I can clean my data up, but I just did it for a quick test. And for what it's worth, for those of you who are familiar with the space, it's about 1,600 tokens. Okay, so that's around, well, it depends on how they break it up, but I'll just say 1,600 tokens. So fine, I did that, and then I just asked it questions. And this is really charming because it's done pretty good considering I haven't given it a whole lot of context. Remember that the model doesn't read the pages like the pictures. I haven't given it some descriptions. It's just going on the text of the book. So say, hey, what is your name? My name is Stanley. What do? I'm a snow squirrel who helps Santa. By using my knowledge of wormholes to deliver lost gifts to children on Christmas Eve. I traveled through various challenging environments, faced my fears, and managed to return the lost gifts to the rightful owners, proving that even a small creature like me can make a big difference. So this is phenomenal because I did this with ChatGPT as well, and the response was not great. As I said, I did it with Mistral. Mistral just really struggles with a large amount of content coming in. Or again, maybe I don't know how to format it well with prompts. And I thought, hey, where have you traveled? And it hits a few. It's like, I've been to swamps, deserts, underwater, forests, bees, roller coasters, and even more. Which is true. Those are most of the places it went to. And he goes a little bit further. He doesn't go into a bunch of jibber jabber. It's really concise and clean. Each destination was unique. It presented its own set of challenges that I had to overcome to save the lost gifts. That's exactly right. I asked it what kind of gifts did it retrieve. Toy bike, soccer ball, doll. Now, here's an example where it says Lonely Nautilus, because I used the word nanopus, which doesn't exist. It's a 9-armed octopus. So it did its best to say whatever it could come up with, which was Nautilus. Which, remember, this is a probability model. That's all it is. So it goes on and say, hey, what is the hardest thing to retrieve? And it talked about the one from a volcano. So it figured out where he had to go save a sloth and he was stuck. And it did mix in the fact that it was afraid of heights, which was a different adventure. But in the end, he saved the sloth, he overcame the volcano, and it shows that, that moment in the story was good for him building his confidence. I asked it if it has friends, and it came out with the one major, there's two major friend references, but one is the fact that he befriended this nanopus and gave him 9 hugs. So that was really delightful. And it talks about, hey, are there any troubles? I'm asking things that I expect it to tell me about. And it says, yes, the wormhole can be unstable, and my landings go wrong. And he talks about falling on the floor, which is a character thing. All the time he comes out of the wormhole, he flumps around. He lands badly. It's just a part of the gag of the character. And I ask it about, hey, are there science cells? Are they real? And it talks about who they are and how they helped him to be successful. So that was really delightful. And then I went to some other things, and it, as I got further and further away from the core, it did struggle. It talks about, here's a great example where it combined its knowledge of the story plus its own knowledge as a large language model. It says, I said, hey, you ever been to Mars? Can you tell me about it? And he says, yes, I did travel to Mars during my journey. It was a barren, round landscape with cold air, but I found a lost soccer ball there. And despite the alien environment and lack of oxygen, I managed to deliver the gift before returning home. So that's a mix of two things. The soccer ball was in a different page. And I don't tell it anything about Mars, like in the context window up here. It's just the picture has happened to be Mars with him standing there with a friend, and it's a baseball. So he gets close. It's not bad. The solution there would be more context around what he did specifically in Mars. And here's where it had to totally make up its own sense of the world, because even though I tell it's a snow squirrel, I never tell the character anything in here about the look of the character. Nothing about the text in the book says it's a blue snow squirrel with a white and blue striped tail. So I said, hey, what do you look like? He says, I'm a snow squirrel with white fur, blends in well with the environment. It goes on, my eyes are bright. He talks about a bushy tail, which a squirrel will have. So this is all from his own knowledge of what squirrels are, not from the book. And I say, well, actually, your fur's blue, you have a pink nose, and your bushy tail is striped white and blue. And so he goes, okay, cool. I got blue hair, and it still kind of sticks to the idea that he can use that for hiding in the surroundings, which is cute. But he goes right along with it. Yeah, okay, my tail's blue. I can go with that. I also tell him he wears a Santa hat and he wears a magical Santa bag. And yes, I do. Of course I do. He talks about how he uses it. And so fine. I said, well, are you shy? Because this was a character flaw at the beginning of the story. And he says, I was once shy. But after overcoming my fear of heights on the roller coaster and other challenges, I gained confidence, and now I'm brave and outgoing. So this is a big deal. That's actually the story character's journey. At the end, he builds his own confidence. So that was delightful. He couldn't figure out the fact that dust makes him sneeze. That's something that I'll have to look back, but I thought it made it clear in the story that the character sneezes. So when it's too dusty because of reindeer dust. But anyhow, he gets a lot of the core stuff. And I'm just delighted with how far he's able to go with nothing but an ugly copy and paste. And so he will hallucinate, though. These things will hallucinate. I asked him, hey, have you ever found a trumpet? So in their desire to please, he says, I found a trumpet in the jungle once. I gave it to a child who dreamt of playing music and finding unique gifts. So no, he did not find a trumpet in his journey, but he actually came up with a decent answer, which means if a kid asked him that question, he could give something to the kid to work with, which is kind of charming. So anyway, I'm really delighted. Probably with 2 or 3 hours of effort, I was able to go into the internet, find how to get a large language model that actually is fine-tuned enough to make a decent character that talks back to me in a way that knows about itself. And then the next step, and I'll finish up here, the next step for me then would be to figure out how to get it out of the format of GGUF, or its original format, into ONNX. ONNX is what Centis uses to integrate a model with Unity. So that's my next step, is to figure that out, and maybe I can have a game where I can talk to Stanley inside of an experience. And who knows, maybe one day get to the point where he has an animated face and is speaking with a text to language, a verbal language model, sound, if you will. But for now, really delighted with the results from LM Studio. Really delighted with the results from the Open Hermes experience here. So thanks to that team and also the Bloke team for putting it together. Lots of fun. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions.